Okay, everybody, this is an informal intro for the Creation Liberty podcast. We've had some issues on my end tonight with my bandwidth not working properly. But just so you guys know, we're broadcasting as I'm a young earth creationist, believe the Bible is literally true, and tonight we have Brian, who's come on from Pennsylvania, who so far stated that he takes the evolutionary atheistic position and the naturalistic position, and I think has stated that you think, if I quoted you right, my website's a joke. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure we got that recorded there. So what initially led you, because I know most of the people I have on, I invite to be on the show. You actually contacted me. What initially struck you to contact me to come on the show today?
This big Doug Theory article, just how just horribly reasoned it is.
Mm-hmm.
Just highly inaccurate scientifically. Just, I don't know.
Okay, so you believe that the Big Bang actually took place, and that's what everything in the universe came from, is that correct?
It's the best explanation we have at the moment, yes.
Okay, so that's the position you take. Okay, so why don't you, well, I mean, so I guess that I take it you claim that you have some sort of scientific evidence that occurred?
No. I'm saying that your article is very inaccurate in what actual science says, and it has some very poorly reasoned arguments.
Okay, well, give me one. Let's hear some of this.
You have up here. Let's see.
So you didn't prepare for this at all? Like you didn't have something that you know?
Yeah, I did. Just hold on a second. It says, but it was Gamow, a well-known scientist and science fiction writer, that coined the Big Bang phrase and popularized the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not really true. If you can just Google it, and it's not true. I don't know how you got that it was Gamow who popularized this phrase. But a little further down, you're talking about redshift theory. And you say light is
well, first of all, I mean,
in the same way?
We're going to have to take this one topic at a time.
A speeding ticket?
We're going to have to take this one topic at a time. Now, the book, in Isaac Asimov, now he wrote about this in Asimov's New Guide to Science. You can find this information about George Gamow. I mean, the Big Bang was originally a science fiction idea that got popularized over the radio.
No.
Yeah, I mean that's okay. Well, you tell Isaac Asimov, that's that his book's incorrect, and
he's a Belgian priest, George Lemaitre. He thought that if it was expanding, then at one point in time in the past, it was really small. And it's not difficult.
Okay. Well, then I'll check that out, and I can add in.
Big Bang phrase came from Fred Hoyle, who was using it as a smear term, basically.
Well, I mean, whether one person or not, I mean, I'll add that on. I can tag that to it if you'd like. I mean, I can, add that information in there. I don't mind doing that, but that still doesn't make it it doesn't not make it a science fiction idea. It's still science fiction. I mean, if you want to believe it, that's great, man. I don't care what you want to believe, but it's not science. It's what you speculate, but it's not part of science.
I don't get the point of linking like fourth grade textbooks. Like, why would you talk about fourth grade textbooks? And
these are not just fourth grade textbooks. I have elementary textbooks. I have high school textbooks on here. I mean,
these are high school textbooks.
Yeah. Look, the one that talks about, like, for example, the very first image that's on there, I had that textbook.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I mean, these are things that, I have some of these textbooks in my library. I mean, these are things that are still being taught. I mean, I will be happy to quit teaching this stuff once they quit teaching it.
What's funny is that I know another guy who has this exact same image on some of his slides.
Mm-hmm.
What's his name? Kent Open? Did you copy from him?
So,
Plagiarize from him?
can I ask you a question then? So have you seen Kent Hovind's material?
Yeah, and it's a joke.
Okay,
It's
so
as bad
you
as
saw
his website.
so you saw his material and you saw my material, and you immediately logically concluded there's a common designer between them.
No, I concluded that you plagiarized it.
Well, that's what you're saying. You're saying the same person created this material. That's what plagiarism is.
No, it's copying one person without giving them credit.
Well, first of all, I have absolute permission to use any of that material that I want. You call up Kent Hovind, you call up his son Eric, they're creationtoday.org, and there's perfect permission to do that.
You should still give him credit.
I'm friends with Eric. Eric said go ahead and take it and use it. The credit goes to the textbook publisher because they're the ones that published it. But the concept, this is the argument I'm making. If you want to say, see, that's like me coming to you and saying, well, all you're doing is just spewing stuff that Richard Dawkins makes, so everything you say is irrelevant. I mean, that's...
You didn't listen to Richard Dawkins.
You see, but you see, the point is that you're spewing the same things that other people have spewed out, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's irrelevant. I'm making these arguments, let's deal with the argument. And I'm saying you don't have any scientific evidence to back up this Big Bang model. It just comes from... It's a completely speculative idea. It's a religious idea.
You're hilarious, man.
Okay, well, if you want to just say I'm hilarious, I'll just say you're hilarious, and we'll hang up here, and I'll go ahead and talk for the rest of the podcast. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
Light assumed to work the same way. I don't get this light is assumed to work the same way.
Well, define what you're talking about. Are you saying that light works in waves? Is that what you're saying? You're talking about the redshift?
It works in both. It's a particle and a wave, as far as we can tell.
Well, I mean, you're just telling, you're saying that, well, it works in a particle, it works in a wave. Some people say it's a photon. There's even some people that are proposing now that it has a biological property. I mean, there's a lot of people that say what it might be, but nobody knows for sure.
What? That has nothing to do with what I was talking about.
Well, yeah, it does. You're saying, we assume that it works in these ways. Like, for example, if light is assumed to work as sound.
It's not assumed that it works as a wave. It's known that it works as a wave because we can measure Doppler shift on. I mean, how do you get radar? Do you know what radar is?
Mm-hmm.
So what is radar? You tell me.
Well, I mean, if you're saying that, I mean,
the
radar signals.
Radar?
Well, are you talking about like sonar radar? Or is that what you're talking about, or?
Yes, sonar radar.
Yeah. So it sends out a wave that reacts to the particles in the air around it, and it bounces back off of things.
Wow. All right. Sonar is sound waves, while radar is actually light waves. It's part of the electromagnetic spectrum. It's a whole spectrum of it's all light, really. You have radar, infrared, visible light. There's a few other things I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, it's. I mean, that's how they bounce radar off clouds and tell you how fast the storm is moving, or it's how they get you with a speeding ticket.
Yeah, and what you're doing is you're saying that they're bouncing off things. That's not the same as what we're discussing here. At all. You see, what you're saying is that because this thing... No, you're saying an object in space is moving... you'll say, like, for example, redshift, if so everyone...
No,
hold on a
second. On the Earth.
Brian, calm down. I'm letting you talk. Brian, I'm letting you talk. Let me finish my explanation, okay? Because I want to keep everybody on term of what redshift is. They're saying because this star is moving away from us, therefore it shifts red because of the expanding, light waves where it works like sound. So what you're talking about, we're not sending we're not sending anything out to bounce off of anything. That's not the same as radar.
I didn't say we were.
I know, but that's what you're claiming. You're saying, do you know what radar is? You're comparing radar to redshift.
I'm giving you an example of what the difference between sonar and radar is, so you can understand that it's not assumed to work the same way. It works the same way because we can measure speed of different objects.
And Brian, listen carefully. Listen carefully.
Clouds, for example,
Brian,
radar, which is light. It's
Brian,
not sonar. It's
listen carefully. Redshift is not radar. What did you send from Earth to bounce off the star? What did you send from Earth to bounce off the star?
You just don't get it, do you? It's okay.
It's not radar. If you want to believe that it is, wonderful. Okay, redshift
You're so
is simply.
scientifically alert. It's pathetic.
Okay, well then I'll say. Okay, Brian, is this how you handle? Is this how you reason with other people? Is this? Do you just say, "Oh, everything you say is ridiculous, and I'm right, and that's it"?
What the difference is, and you're like closing your ears or something. I don't know what you're doing.
Brian, I'm asking you, is this how you handle scientific reasoning? When someone tells you, is trying to explain something to you, you just say, "Oh, well, that's just ridiculous," and you just write them off? Is that how you want me to handle you? You would just say everything you have to say is ridiculous?
That doesn't make sense. I'm talking about one specific thing, and then I'm trying to explain to you that it's not assumed that light works the same way. We know that it works the same way because we can use radar, which is light, to measure the speed of cars and clouds, for example.
You can bounce things off of it. Okay, you can bounce things off of it. That is not what redshift is. Can you explain to me what redshift is?
Redshift.
You're saying an object is leaving the Earth. Okay, it's going away from the Earth in that direction. And the light that reaches us is going to be weaker for that, okay? That's not the same as bouncing light off of things to test this stuff. You still with me? Hello? Okay, well, I guess Brian's not with us. I don't know where he went, but I guess that's as far as it goes. I'm going to have to screen my guest a little more, I think, because that's getting a little ridiculous. There's no reason to come on here. Folks, if you're going to come on, at least have an evidential argument of some sort. Don't just say, well, you know, we have radar, so therefore the Big Bang happened. I mean, come on, that's not an argument. And if you want to believe that, great, man. You can believe whatever religious theory you want. You can believe in the Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, evolution. I don't care what you believe in. But it doesn't make it science, folks. What this is he's saying that there are... Redshift is basically where you're bouncing sound waves, or not bouncing sound waves. He's talking about radar. We didn't send anything to the star to bounce off of it, okay? We're saying the star itself is producing this light. That's not the same thing. Now, the star's producing this light, and they say because it's, you know, first of all, it's moving away, so therefore it's going to expand the wavelength of it, and we're going to see a red shift. So from normal white light, it would shift to red. That's all good in theory, but they're assuming that light works in that way, okay? And so what the problem we have here, I mean, there's numerous problems with this. Like I said, light's assumed to work in sound waves. But here's the problem. They will look at a star through a telescope, and they will judge the color of the star. Now, keep in mind, first of all, nobody's even proven that a star is like our sun. They're assuming that, and I think it's a reasonable assumption. I don't argue that, but they haven't proven that either. And so what happens is when you send you look at a telescope into a star, they will see a star's color, and they judge based on the color what type of gases that star is made from. How do you know that this star that is red is not just producing a certain type of gas? They don't know that either. How about a blue star? See, the blue star, they say it's advancing towards us on the other end of the spectrum. So if it's coming towards us, it's compressing the light waves, is what they say. And so the star is, you know, has compressed light waves and will give a blue color. And if they say it's receding away, well, then it's going to give a red shift, okay, on the other end of the spectrum. Well, the blue star, how do you know that's not just the gases that are being produced? Well, they don't know that for certain either. I mean, and it's so funny how they make these claims. And then, even if they want to claim, here's what's funny beyond that. If they want to claim that certain gases produce certain things, produce the certain light from a star and things like that, what's funny is they believe that all the Big Bang, from maybe some hydrogen and some helium, this explosion produced all the other elements that we have, and all the other elements evolved. I've never heard an evolutionist even tackle that topic, even begin to approach it. How do we get all the elements? You're expecting me to believe that uranium evolved from hydrogen? How? And then, on top of that, they're assuming that all the molecules that supposedly evolved, according to their theory, all the molecules that would have evolved on Earth evolved in all these different galaxies in the exact same way they did here. How do you know that for certain? So they don't know hardly anything. And then we didn't even get to star distances and things like that. I don't know why he just kind of disconnected with us like that. That didn't make much sense. But I don't think I'll be having him back if that's all he's going to do. And look, folks, if you come on and, you know, we have tons of people. He seems like the normal YouTuber that we have, Brian did. And, you know, I appreciate his willingness to come on, but you have to, you know, present some sort of evidence. You can't just say, that's stupid, that's stupid, that's stupid. People on YouTube do that all the time, too. I mean, that's dumb. Okay, what kind of argument was that? I mean, that doesn't actually present any scientific evidence. It doesn't give us anything to go on. And so, at the same time, Brian, if you want me to come, you know, approach everything that you have to say and say, that's stupid, well, then we might as well not even have this podcast at all. We might as well just go off and do something more enjoyable with our time than sit here and call each other names. I mean, if name-calling and ad hominem attack and ridicule, if that's all you can do, then I win this pretty easily, because you haven't really presented anything yet. So we can go on and talk about all sorts of things. I mean, I'm sure he probably wanted to cover this. The constant speed of light has been disproven in many different ways. The problem is, I mean, I was even looking up some information today on how, you know, how the speed of light actually came about, or actually, the studies for testing the speed of light, how that actually came about. And since we don't have a guest on our show, I'll just continue to talk about this because I found it really interesting. Back in the 13th century was the first time it was ever proposed. I forget the name of the guy. I think it was, both of them last name was Bacon, I think. Francis Bacon was the one in 17th century that proposed it, the early 17th century, and another guy with the last name of Bacon that, you know, proposed it in the 13th century. But before then, it had always been assumed that light was infinite. Light was just instantaneous, just like that. And after, I mean, basically they were trying to propose this, but didn't have a way to prove it. There was no way to actually test the speed of light to see if it wasn't. Until the mid-17th century was when the first pendulum clock was created. So now you don't have clocks that are just based on, you know, the shadow of the sun or from water. Now you have a clock that's actually based independently on a pendulum that can keep seconds of time and things like that. So then they created eventually the Foucault pendulum test. Basically, it's got, you know, you get today we can use laser beams. I mean, back in the day they would use, you know, like a shutter from a light or something like that. But you can get a rotating mirror, and you can actually bounce and actually calculate the speed of light that way. And that kind of testing still works today. I mean, there's high school and college classrooms that still do that experiment today to test the speed of light. Now, the problem is that, well, at least for the modern day, you know, scientists and physicists, that experiment has been done many times over the past 300 years. And it wasn't until the late 17th century that this test really got developed. So it's really only been about the past 300 years we've had the test. And over the past 300 years, many people have done this. In fact, from I believe it's the 1880s to 1930s, I wouldn't quote me on the dates on that, I think that's the rough amount of time, the journal Nature, which was still around back then for some of you who don't know, but they gave, I think it was around 50 different articles on the issue. Barry Setterfield has a really excellent article on this. I had to try to bring it up here. I could probably put it in the description for you guys if you want to go check that out and read it. It's a really fascinating article to read. And they had 50 different publications saying, look, the speed of light is slowing down over the course of time. And this was kind of, among the scientists and physicists who did this a few hundred years ago, you know, up until, you know, the early 20th century, it was kind of common knowledge. People were knowing that the speed of light was slowing down. And it kept slowing down, and Barry Setterfield made a chart of this, along with Trevor Norman, and that's from their the Atomic Constants, Light and Time publication, from their Syntech journal in 2000. I've got one half of the chart on my website that you can take a look at. But all the way up until the 1960s, it was steadily going down until the 1960s when it just smoothed out of nowhere, and it hasn't been declining since. And we have to stop and consider why. You know, he's based this chart on 164 experiments over the past 300 years, and it's been steadily declining up until that point. So why would it stop? I mean, is there something in the cosmos that would have caused the speed of light to stop decreasing? Well, the funny thing was, it was in the 1960s when the atomic clock was made as a standard for measuring not only the seconds on the clock, but also measuring the speed of light. And there's a really big problem because they're using light to measure light. They use the wavelength of a cesium-133 atom. You know, they bounce light off of an atom, and if you're using light to measure light, you now have a rubber ruler. It's not that your measurement isn't accurate, it's that you can stretch the measurement. It's almost like, for those of you who don't understand what I'm talking about, let's say I have twins, you know, obviously the same age, but they're growing, and so I want to measure their growth, but I only measure their growth based on each other. Well, they're going to keep growing at the same rate, so even if I measure it based on them, I'm never going to see a growth rate. To me, they're always going to be the same height. You're never going to see a growth rate. At the same time, you're never going to see a decline in the speed of light when you're using light to measure light. So anyhow, I mean, the constant speed of light's been disproven. I mean, there's been all sorts of experiments to show how through certain mediums, light can slow down, light can speed up. Even cesium gas, specially treated, has been used. You can see all sorts. I mean, check out my article, guys, on here. The one he said that he thought was a joke. It's fully referenced. You can check out all the references to all the textbooks that I do, all the scientific papers. I have all the references on here. So if he wants to say it's a joke, then basically what he's saying is that the references I'm giving to are jokes. Well, you're welcome to make fun of them if you want. But this is also BBC News, Harvard University Gazette, New York Times, all of them posted on the scientific work that was done, entitled "Beam Smashes Light Barrier. Physicists Slow the Speed of Light. Researchers slow speed of light to the pace of a Sunday driver." And they were able to at one point, slow light to a complete stop and release it like it's a material particle. Well, that's interesting. Could you slow sound to a stop? I mean, how do you do that? So, I mean, saying even that light is the same as sound would also be a little confusing on that one, too, just because if you're going to compare it with one thing, you got to compare it with all things, and it doesn't seem to match that those standards. So, anyhow, I think that's about all I was going to cover today. I didn't really have too much prepared, and I guess that's my fault, and I apologize, guys. I mean, most of the time, I'll have stuff prepared in the background, but for this caller, I mean, I didn't think I'd have to prepare something, but I thought he was actually going to give us a consistent argument and not kind of just cut off the phone call just to come on and say, I wanted to come on your show and say your article was stupid, bye. What is the point of that? You could have gone on YouTube and made a comment. Who cares? I think it's, I don't know, some people maybe he likes to beg for attention, I don't know. But I don't think I'll have him back on, and because that'll be a waste of time. So, but next week, hopefully, I'm going to try to get a hold of. We had a guest on, Tony from Australia, joined us a few weeks ago. I can't remember how long ago it was, but he talked about evolution and morals. He's volunteered that he wants to come back on the show and discuss another issue, and he was very courteous to us last time. I really appreciated his demeanor towards me. And I'm excited to have him back on again. I think it'll be a good discussion. So we're going to see if we can contact him this week, get him prepared for that. And I guess we'll do that next week. By the way, one more announcement. The show is actually going to be, again, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My work schedule has shifted again, so now I can go back to the standard time I used to do it before. So next week you want to join us 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, unless we have to I may have to make a specific time for our guest, because he lives in Australia, and we may have to do it at a specific time over the weekend. But you want to join us. Next week is going to be June 25th, and that'll be at 7 p.m. unless I say otherwise, and I'll put an announcement about it on the website. So thanks for everybody who joined us today. Sorry it didn't turn out so well. I wish we'd had a better discussion, but that's the best I can do. And hopefully we'll see you guys next time. Thanks a lot.